there's literally a sound of big arm laughter, and that was just it. Hello again and welcome. This is episode 13 of the Paul Ryder Tapes. I'm Angela Smith, the ex-wife of Paul Ryder, founding member and bass player of Manchester legends Happy Mondays. Paul sat down with me to tell his complete life story with no stone left unturned, and opened up about his successes and his struggles with incredible bravery. Then just 12 days after we finished recording, he suddenly passed away. Coming up in this episode. You never got paid for that.
Never got paid for that. Like everything really in my life. Never get paid for it.
He came up with great ideas, and I just thought, if you're going to do that lyrically in the band with Big Arm, then it's going to be a really good journey.
He had a black cape on and a black hat and black shades and a cane. Yeah. And he walked in and he said, well, you all look like you've done a bit, so if you won't mind fucking off so we could do a bit. And I'm looking thinking, this magic actor's got a terrible attitude. I didn't have a clue that he was a singer.
Paul, of course, would be sick at the side of the stage before he went on every single night, because he was always stage fright.
It's good being in the house band.
Yeah.
You don't have to play a full song.
So we left off the last episode where Paul had left the Mondays in the year 2000, and we'd just bought a big house in France that needed a ton of work doing on it. So we bought the house, did it up, went back to England, and you were ready to do some more music at this point.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
I was ready to do something. Didn't know what I was going to do. Then I got in touch with an old mate of mine, Pete Smith, who's a great engineer and a great musician in his own right. I'd done some work with him years before.
Pete had worked with Paul on the tracks that he did with his ex-girlfriend, Donovan's daughter Estrella, a few years before, so that made him a natural choice to collaborate with again.
I just got a call out of the blue, and he said, I'm building a studio, and, I want to write some tunes. So to be honest, I was a bit like, all right, here we go again. But it's Paul, so you can't say no, can you? So I came down to Worsley to see a garage, which definitely wasn't a studio at the time, but had potential. And I can remember him saying, we're going to have a big mural on the wall here. We're going to have a really cool, and I've got these soundproofing things from the Hacienda, and I've got this sampler, all this kind of stuff. So I was like, right, okay, well, there's work to do, but I guess, we can get going.
You actually were doing some work with him for my TV shows. You were writing theme tunes with him. And it just so happens that I have a few of these TV themes in our archive. So let's have a listen to some of the highlights of what they wrote.
Is that how we got in touch again?
I think so,
You're right. That's how I got in touch with him again after years of not seeing him. And then we decided we'd write an album and get a band together, which we did. We found, through Robb, who was our builder at the time, around about that time, I found Danny, the drummer, great musician as well.
I think it was in 2002 when a mutual friend, Robb Farrington, introduced the two of us. I used to house share with Robb, and obviously he knew that I was a musician and was always banging on about, you know, how he knew Paul and you need to meet him and maybe you could end up working with him at some point. So I think Robb managed to drag him along to a nearby gig that I was doing, a local gig somewhere. I think it was in Bamber Bridge of all places, in Preston. And in walked Paul. I thought, oh, there we go. And I got chatting to him, and he mentioned that he was doing some music with Pete. Would you like to, you know, get involved with that? So I came along, did a bit of singing, playing guitar, some drums.
And then I knew Daz from previous things, so I was like, oh, I've got a guitarist guy.
I was in a studio at Whitworth, and one night the lad who ran the studio got a phone call off Pete Smith asking if he'd come down and do some backing vocals. So I think he asked me just to come along with him as a bit of support. Anyway, when we got down there, I met Pete, and there were some guitars there, so Pete just said, why don't you have a go? So I got up and had a go, and the lad who come with me didn't even open his mouth. So then about 2 hours into the night, then Paul walks in. So I didn't even recognise him at all, you know, it was just like, well, hiya, mate. But then, well, after 10 minutes, he's great then, isn't he? You know? See, I was a bit of a rocker as a young'un, but my brother was completely Manchester. So when I went back and told him, and he's just like, mouth dropped, you know, do you know who he is? And I'm like, well, no, don't really. Then he filled in the gaps and showed me some footage and played some music, and it was like, oh, all right, I know what you mean. But I'm really glad I didn't know that before I met him. I were asking him what his plan were about this, and he said that at this time, we were experimenting. I think that were the main thing they were up to, really. There were a lot of vinyl being played, and I like that bit and I like that bit, and, you know, they were looking for the groove, weren't they, I think, is the best way to term it.
Who was the friend that you went down there with? And what happened to him? Why did he not sing?
No kahunas. So it was just a case of that. Can you come down and do a bit? Can you do a bit? And I ended up doing a bit and he didn't do anything. Yeah.
And how did he feel about not doing anything?
Well, he didn't actually say anything all the way home as well. I think when we were driving home, he realised how jealous he were than what I'd just done.
Lee Mullen was also in Big Arm. He was on that tour.
Yeah. Lee on percussion.
Yeah.
Lee ended up playing with George Michael.
Yeah.
Great percussionist.
Kate Bush.
And Kate Bush.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know he did Kate Bush.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to Lee Mullen, great percussion player.
Nice guy as well.
Yeah, genuine guy.
Paul and I come to work together again with Big Arm, which I jumped at the chance anyway. But not just because of Paul of who he was, but because Paul of what a great, he had great ideas and you know, and he was such a real funky person, you know. I'd like to call him a funky person because he played really groovy bass lines, you know. He came up with great ideas, and I just thought, if you're going to do that lyrically in the band with Big Arm, then it's going to be a really good journey, you know. So it wasn't even an audition with Big Arm. It was just like you're in the band, you know. He came to see me. He came to see me in the music shop in Johnny Roadhouse Music and said, "Lee, I've been trying to get hold of you. Will you come and play some percussion with my band, Big Arm?" And I just said yes straight away. There was no like, I'm not sure if I can do it.
Yeah. So we had a full band, that guys. Pete was doing a lot of the music, and I did the lyrics. Never wrote lyrics before in my life, but it was more like proving a point that I could still do stuff.
Right.
Very much like proving a point.
And tell me about the name of the band and where that came from.
That was Ian Brown's name for me, was Big Arm.
Why? Because
he said all my bass lines sounded really big from a big arm. So it just kind of stuck. I thought Big Arm's a kind of a cool name. It comes from Ian's mouth.
Yeah.
I did think at the time, you know, Paul, don't be the singer, you know. Have your own band, but, you know, it can be your own band. You don't have to be the singer.
He did have to be the singer.
I appreciate that now, yeah.
He had a point to prove, I think.
Yeah, but it's a little bit like Liam and Noel, isn't it? Yeah, the two brothers, they're very similar. I put them on in the city.
You did. I remember that in the Chapel Street, that pub.
Yeah, that's right. And the Darkness played there as well.
The Darkness played the same night.
Downstairs, on the small stage. They hated me for that, the Darkness.
Our first gig was at the King's Arms in Salford for the Battle of the Bands, like in the city. The King's Arms was like a derelict building at the time. It was it had been closed down and it had been opened up specifically for that gig, and I just remember it being packed to the rafters full of these dodgy types, you know, and but it was a really good atmosphere, you know. And I remember when we were sound checking, I remember the sound man said to me, "Okay, can we have your bass drum, Danny?" So I hit the bass drum, 1, 2, 3, and all this dust came down from the rafters and just covered everyone in muck, you know. Which...
Can you think of any names that he came up with for people? I know that the driver, Chris and... do you remember Chris, the driver?
Yeah. Chris. What his name was? Double pudding. Double pudding and chips, yeah. Which was Chris's favourite dish. Yeah, yeah, he was a character.
But in the meantime, Chris, a.k.a. Double Pudding, has lost some weight.
Gone.
Oh, yeah.
He's now single pudding.
Single pudding, no chips or peas. I was driver roadie for Big Arm for around about 2.5 years, and Paul nicknamed me. I was known in Big Arm as Double Pudding and Chips, because back then I was 20 stone. Basically, and I loved that nickname. A lot of people would have got a smack off me for that nickname, but Paul gave me that nickname and I loved it. If they would have made a carry-on film about a band, that was it. Being in Big Arm, being in and around Big Arm, what with Danny Short and all the lads, and Paul had his moments, he was hilarious. I remember at the Water Rats one, Angela, Paul had a little treat for me, and it was meeting Paul Cook at the Sex Pistols, because I'm a big punk rocker and a drummer as well. I know he was a big idol, and he said, someone's coming to this gig tonight, Double Pudding, and they want to, and you're going to meet him. I know it was Paul Cook, and I was just blown away, you know. Oh, just amazing. I was a little bit of a mess, really, you know. I was a bit sort of
starstruck.
Bit starstruck, you know.
Amazing.
Hiya, Paul. Love you.
He's one of them, Paul. He was kind of, you know, he was easy to make laugh. You know, he's quite a humorous fella, and Paul always encouraged everyone to be humorous and have a laugh and a joke, you know.
He used to love your funny voices, I remember.
Yeah, yeah. The impersonations are always an icebreaker, aren't they? You know.
He did impressions of every one of us.
Every one of us.
Every one of us, yeah.
I used to be able to do one of Pete.
He did Pete, amazing. He did Pete better than Pete.
Brilliant.
Well, you know, he talks a bit like that, doesn't he, you know, so...
I'm not going to say it's easy.
Well, you know, he talks a bit like that, doesn't he, you know, so...
Don't you go, I was telling him that, anyway. And I remember Lee Mullen, the percussion player. Lee talks a bit like that, don't you? How you doing, mate? Hey!
Really good, thanks. Yeah, really good.
Paul was a big fan of The Simpsons. I always remember when we used to be recording and stuff, you know, he'd always have Simpsons on in the background. Well, of course, you've got Monty Burns, haven't you? You know? And of course, you've got Smithers and stuff like that. You know, come on, Marge. You know, stuff. Just little icebreakers like that, you know. And Paul would always, like, do this massive belly laugh, you know, which was, you know, really nice, you know. It always kind of, like, helped to warm the atmosphere, you know.
Big Arm got to support Ian Brown on 2 different tours. Daz was in an Oasis tribute band called Wonderwall and was playing with that band the night before the first gig with Ian.
The first gig we did with Ian Brown was Braehead Arena in Scotland. I think it's about 20,000 people or something. So the night before, I'd been in Birmingham doing a massive gig, as far as I were concerned. And there were about 3,500 there. And we get to the Ian, but we went straight from that gig. I brought Wonderwall with me, and we went straight to that gig. And I walked on the stage, and the stage was bigger than the venue I'd played in the night before. And that was a bit of a whoa. But as soon as the music started, oh yeah, I felt well at home. It was amazing. I mean, to be fair, Ian giving us them 2 shots was fantastic, weren't it? To get us out there, you couldn't ask for more.
I've got 2 great memories, right, from that night. The first one is when we're sat in catering and Ian Brown comes in and he goes over to the table and he's like looking around and he's like, "Where's me fucking pie? Who's it, old Miss Gran?" He storms out through this door, shuts the door behind him. And then, like, about 10 seconds later, he comes out and says, "It's a cupboard."
Won't you get out of this fucking building? Sorry, can I swear? Am I alright to swear? Can bleep it out, can I? That's what he said. I remember me and Lee kind of like, don't laugh. And I even remember Paul saying, "For God's sake, just leave it, you know, just say it."
The other memory from that gig was like, so we come on stage and I was like, "Oh, I've made it good here. I'm in a band. I'm supporting Ian Brown. It's just like 6,000 cap arena. I'm like, this is going to be great." So we go up to play the first song. Someone launched like a drink at me, and it was like one of those blue wicked drinks or something. Just coated me a Thai keyboard. It was just like really sticky.
It's going to be one of those nights.
I was like, I'll just put it on track.
Let it dry up it doesn't sparks coming off it.
I was like, oh, that's that then, isn't it? Cleaning it for days.
Oh dear me. The crosses we have to bear, playing live. You know.
Do you remember that? I can't remember which one it were, with Ian Brown. And Paul had obviously told Ian Brown about Danny's mimicking skills.
Yeah.
So then Ian Brown comes rushing into the dressing room.
Who's the mimic?
Who's the mimic?
Who's the mimic? Who's the mimic?
It's Danny here goes, "Go on then." So he does Jules Holland, amazing. Introduces Ian Brown on Jules Holland.
Yeah.
And then
this is Ian Brown. Yeah. So it's a long time since you last worked with the Roses. So
yeah. And he was like, "Oh, fucking great, man, great."
And then as soon as he walked out and shut the door, Danny started doing Ian Brown. This is getting very confusing.
Tell me about your friendship with Ian Brown.
Great guy. When Chico got really ill, which we'll talk about later, with cancer, you know, he was more like a brother to me than my own brother, which is difficult to say. You know, not once did my own brother say, "I was Chico," and still all these years later he's never asked.
But Shaun was really good helping with the fundraiser that we had for Chico, so we've got to give him credit for that, but we'll come to that later.
Ian was like a brother to me at the time, you know, and I was seeing quite a lot of him.
Yeah. So by this time we'd had a second child, Chico, who was born 19 months after our oldest child, Sonny, and weirdly the age gap between Sonny and Chico is exactly the same as the age gap between you and Shaun.
Spooky.
How did you feel about that?
Oh, God, I was worried for them. Yeah. I was worried for both of them, Chico and Sonny.
Yeah.
But God, they turned out really good.
Yeah. We didn't have to worry, did we? They never fought once, really.
No.
If they did, it was for like 1 minute and then they were fine again.
Then there was great mates again, and they're still great mates. It's beautiful to see.
Yeah.
It's a lovely thing to see them getting along.
Yeah. Actually, you also, during that time, played bass for Ian Brown.
I did, on a few shows.
Yeah.
I played, I think I went on and did 3 songs where the bass player put his bass down and played trumpet or some kind of...
it was a trumpet.
It was a trumpet, yeah. And I would come on and do these 3 songs, which was great for getting me back on stage.
Yeah.
You know, I hadn't done it for years, and that was the way I got back into doing live music.
Yeah.
Thanks to Ian.
Yeah. So Big Arm, tell me about that album.
I like it. I've just recently revisited it, and I think it's really good.
I know, it was really good, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And we deleted it after 1,000 copies, so I think it might be time to
re-release.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to New York with the boys and decided to shoot a video.
Yeah. Great video. And you did that.
I know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Flashbacks. And there was it made the papers actually.
Ooh.
We were walking around the East Village, and the whole concept of the video was you wandering around the streets of the East Village of New York.
Which you have to have permission to film.
Yeah,
we had no permission.
No, we were just doing it guerrilla style. And at one point, talk about the thing that happened, the cop car.
The cop car came along, and I said, shoot the cops.
In a really loud voice,
Yeah.
Shoot the cops!
Like, shoot them as in film them. And I think they took umbrage to it, didn't they?
I think they misunderstood slightly,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it all worked out okay in the end. But it was all over the papers.
Yeah, shoot the cops. I just meant film the cops.
Yeah, we nearly got arrested.
Yeah, don't shout shoot the cops loud in New York.
And the crew consisted of our sons, Sonny and Chico, who were about 6 and 7 at the time. In fact, Chico gets caught in one of the shots carrying a tripod. And that single was released to great critical acclaim. In Spiral Carpet's legend, radio DJ and all-round lovely human Clint Boone was a champion of the song from the start.
The first time I came across the Mondays was, I think it was January of 85, and New Order were doing a couple of gigs around the north of England. So one was in Blackburn, and then the night after they played in Leeds at Tiffany's. And I think the band that played in Blackburn were called Blue in Heaven, and then the band that played in Leeds the next night, I'd never heard of them. They were called Happy Mondays. And I thought, I wonder if this is a bit of a trick, like, because it's like Blue in Heaven and Happy Mondays. It's like Happy in Heaven and Blue Monday. So I thought, is this like a little New Order sort of gag? Anyway, there were two completely different bands. Happy Mondays that night was just like nothing I'd ever seen. It was just like a bunch of lads waiting for a buzz, like but making music at the same time. It just looked so ramshackle, and the way they dressed, it was like they looked like they'd not got dressed up to do the gig. You know what I mean? Just these were the clothes that just worn through the day, tracksuits and whatever else. And so I was smitten with the band from the first time I saw them. They are some of my favourite people in the world are in that band, and now, you know, and Paul was one of them, you know. And over the years, I always remember him being just a dead solid geezer. At the time when he had a big arm, I got the feeling that he needed help with that band. I think people would have preferred him to still be working with the Mondays, but he wanted to get that out of his system, and he did so, and he put out some great tracks. And I had the pleasure of getting him on XFM a couple of times on my evening show, it was at the time. Yeah, I mean, what a great man. What a great man, and what a great musician. I think he's going to go down in the history books as one of the great musicians of this part of the world, and certainly of that genre.
And then we did another video for Sunrays, which was a great summer tune, wasn't it?
Great summer tune, Sunrays, yeah. I listened to that one the other day as well.
Yeah.
It was great. I loved that album.
You mixed the album in France. You went to the house in France, didn't you? Who was that with?
The one and only John Pennington.
Yeah.
Great engineer. First met John when he was like just 17 at Strawberry Studios. He was like the in-house engineer there.
Yeah.
And he's quite a genius at his job.
Yeah.
And we mixed it in France in the living room.
Paul was really proactive in that respect. So I'd be putting these tracks together and making them sound good. He'd come in, listen to me and say, John, wow, this is great. You know, it's just exactly where we want to go. And we talk about, you know, what we wanted it to be or what was needed. I said, hey, Paul, it'd be nice if we put a bass line on this, or I'd try, you know, a new bass line.
Did he play the bass on that album?
Yeah, there was a few songs that he did. I mean, the original songs had his bass on them anyway. We'd reuse them, and sometimes the song needed something a bit more than a bass. So sometimes it became a bit more electronic than it would have been, but that was the groove of the style of the thing that came out. Similar to what we did with the Happy Mondays, was where he kind of listened to a song and said, "Oh, that bass line's great," and try and make his own. And that's the great thing about Paul, is he's very, very good at. He was very good at making things his own. There'd be a daily trip to go out to get baguettes and some nice cheese and some vegetables, and Paul would be the chef, because he knew that I'd be working on the tracks all day.
And he did a remix of Sun Rays, and everybody thought it was, because he used to work for Moby, everybody, the rumour was on the streets that it was Moby's remix.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But it was actually Moby's producer's remix.
Yeah, 20 odd years he worked for Moby.
Yeah.
He was a great engineer, great musician as well.
And that song was played a lot in Ibiza that summer, I believe.
Oh, really?
Sun Rays.
So I think I'd had a night, and basically, a couple of bottles of Guinness or whatever it would have been, probably French wine.
Do you remember what the brief was?
Ibiza.
Do you remember why we called you Gianni Panettone?
Because it was sounded Ibiza.
It sounded Italian.
It sounded Italian, yeah.
Gianni is Johnny, and
you came up
Panettone
with
is
a name.
Penningtone. It's very similar to
You
your
got to
actual
come up with
name.
another name, yeah.
It was kind of a very Ibiza kind of vibe, the remix.
I'm going to have to
of
revisit
it.
that one.
Really good. It's on the single. We've still got a few left, I think.
Oh, right.
But yeah, we released it and then we de-released it.
Mm-hmm.
We de-released it because we had a plan to re-release it sometime in the future, and that future is just about now. It's available digitally any day now, and we also do have a few physical CD copies of the 2 singles and the album. But you did quite a lot of gigs, big arm gigs, didn't you?
Yeah, we did a tour, which was great. Supported
Oh, you
Ian.
supported Ian Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Glasgow show was great. Yeah, the Glasgow show was really good.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember those laughs. There's literally a sound of big arm laughter, and that was just it.
Yeah.
It's like a trio of giggles. Yeah, no, seriously, that's really weird. That's really familiar and strange, and something I've not heard for a long time. It really is. That was the sound of Big Arm on the road in the van with double tudding. It was. That was what it was all about.
Yeah.
Do you remember that gig where Pete was late and you had to go on stage before Pete got there, and Derek had
I do. Brixton Academy.
Derek, remind me.
Do you remember when Pete was late? Pete was programming on keyboards, and your dad, who was the tour manager, had to stand in for Pete.
He was pressing buttons and pretending to play the keyboards.
Yeah,
and then Pete walked on halfway through the show.
took over surreptitiously.
Proper Spinal Tap.
Listen, right, I lived through that.
It was Brixton Academy, wasn't it?
Yeah, do you know the best thing about that, right, was I think I was fitting a kitchen in the morning, and it overran. That's why I was late, and I had to finish it because it was just there was no way I could kind of get out of it. But so it was all really super stressful and all the rest of it, right? So I get the train to London, and then I get on the tube, and I've never got off the tube in Brixton before. So it's when you come off the tube in Brixton, there's loads of steps in there, and then you just come out onto the main street, and it's whoa. And anyway, so I'm coming up these steps, and Chris is at the top of the steps, and he's like, "Quick, come on!" Right. So I'm running down the street. I'm running down the high street in Brixton, following Chris, trying to run down the street and all the rest of it. And then We kind of legged it in the stage door, and he's like shoving me through, and then on the stage, and I put my bag down at the back of the stage. I walked on, took my coat off, put my coat down, tapped Derek on the shoulder. He got up and walked off, and I sat down and just started playing.
Like shit.
Was it the first song that you got? Was it the middle of the first song?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, your heart must have been pounding.
Well, it was nuts because it was like Brixton Academy with like however many thousand people in there. And it was just like...
And were you and the rest of the band not panicking?
No.
No.
We knew he'd get there.
No.
He'd get there. Plenty of time, you know. No. Chris is a good driver. He knows his way around, you know.
Quick. Hey.
Yeah, get in,
Hey.
man. Come
Run
on, you're going to be
faster.
late.
Run faster.
For God's sake.
They needed man and van, and I was that man and van.
I think your dad must have been doing something because he had to press go, didn't he? On the keyboard?
He did his bit.
Yeah.
It's a good job he was there.
Yeah.
Derek's family wasn't like my family, and he didn't get opportunities. He didn't get backup of his parents and what have you. And he always said he never wanted to be like that. He would, let his own children, if they wanted to do something, he would back them 100%.
And we went to Berlin. Do you remember going to Berlin?
Yeah.
To play something to do with British
Embassy.
Or British Embassy or something.
We played in a big room in the British Embassy for like this music seminar thing that was going on in Berlin.
Me and Derek had to drive all the equipment over to Berlin while the band flew out, and that was a journey and a half, and I always will be a massive cherished memory of that. I learned so much off that man.
So what did you get up to on the journey?
Just his humour and pointing out all the characters and how we got on with everybody, and then we watched the cabaret on the ferry, and you can imagine us two there, Max and Paddy, like two bank robbers watching the cabaret. We used to drive to London a lot, do a lot of one-off gigs, because we were working hard. There was a little period there where we were working very hard. And I used to get back to Manchester, sometimes it'd be 4, 5, 6 a.m, dropping everybody off. I got all the way back to my house in Oldham, stopped the van and realised I still had Gaz Wilkinson asleep on behind the driver's seat.
Yeah. I just close my eyes and off I go.
And I went, oh,
Yeah.
And I had to then wake him up, Daz! And drive him all the way back to Heywood. So that was me in bed. And that was quite a common occurrence with Daz.
Oh, right, there's a good one. The Metro.
Zodiac Mind Warp.
We played with Zodiac Mind Warp. So we'd done our spot, which went down great. And then we're in the dressing room, just mopping our brows and getting ready to go. And this magician-looking fella walks in. And he had a black cape on and a black hat and black shades and a cane.
Yeah.
And he walks in and he said, well, you look like you've done a bit, so if you won't mind fucking off so we could do a bit. And I'm looking thinking, this magic actor's got a terrible attitude. I didn't have a clue that he was a singer. Yeah. And anyway, Paul stood toe to toe and give it him.
Yeah.
And me and Danny went upstairs thinking, I'm not standing with this prick.
No.
And then Paul come up and I said, how did you know him? And he goes, I don't know him. Oh, all right. I thought you knew him, that's why I walked out. Talk about backup. Yeah, good luck, Paul.
I always remember Paul saying, because he said, didn't he, no, fuck off. And Paul said, if you say fucking please, I will.
He
was
the
lead singer.
Yeah.
Whatever his name is.
So he were absolutely horrible. And then one of his crew come up to me about an hour later and said, listen, mate, is there any chance we could borrow your guitar amp? Oh, really? Yeah, ours has gone down. Oh, has it?
You're going down too.
So I thought, right, I'm going back in then. So I went down into the changing room and they were all there. And he sees me again. Oh, hello, one of them. And one of the lads just went, you need to shut up. He's going to lend us some equipment.
Yeah.
So he was like, oh.
Yeah.
I'll stare at him instead then.
I remember I met a Sex Pistol that night.
Paul Cook come and
was in
watched
the
us.
audience, yeah. And so was Ian Astbury from the Cult.
That's right. Well. He was DJing.
He was, yeah.
Right.
Paul Cook was friends with Paul.
Yeah,
right.
I was sat talking to him for ages, and then we left, and Paul said, "You haven't got a clue who that were, have you?" And I went, "No, why were?"
I remember playing on stage, and there was actually a light shining on Paul Cook. I could see his face really, really vividly. It was like, "There's a Sex Pistol." There's a Sex Pistol. Bloody hell.
All nice guys, lovely to work with.
It was a nice vibe, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Between everybody.
Really
Everybody
good
used to
vibe.
say that, yeah. And Daz Gilkinson had an Oasis tribute band, didn't he?
Yeah, he was Noel Gallagher in the Oasis tribute band.
Wasn't there a gig that you did at not Butley, Pontins or something?
No.
There was a Pontins gig.
Really?
And I think he played as well as the Oasis tribute band on the same bill.
Oh, that's funny.
I can't remember.
That's funny. I ended up in Pontins.
Well, during this time, let's talk about what was going on with the Mondays. So you'd left.
I'd left.
And what happened after
No
that?
Mark Day, no PD, no Paul Ryder. Gaz was hanging on in there.
Yeah.
And Shaun got...
But Rowetta was she still there then?
To a certain point, yeah.
Yeah, and then she left because she had a fight with Shaun, didn't she?
Yeah. Shaun has fights with everyone.
So it was just left that it was Bez, Gaz, Shaun.
Yeah, and a couple of session players.
Yeah.
And they just drove it into the ground.
And then Gaz eventually left, and your son Jacob took over on drums for a while, didn't he?
Jacob drummed for a while. That's when it was great to see my son drumming.
Yeah.
And I went to watch them in LA.
I know, I remember that.
It was a very strange experience.
Okay, so during that time, there was a film being made called 24-Hour Party People. Tell us about that.
I really liked it.
It was a great script, wasn't it?
Great script, yeah. Lots of exaggeration.
It was during that time that Paul met actor Paul Popplewell, who was given the job of playing Paul Ryder in the film. Your knees in, does that matter?
No, I'll put my knee down, look.
Let's check the shot with my glasses.
And is that, am my eye line a bit wide there, though?
I'm going to sit right next to the camera.
You can tell I'm an actor, can't you?
Professional.
I don't know about that, but conscious of my eye line. So kind of...
Oh, the desks. Oh, that's better. Do you want to not? Why do you want to wear your sunglasses?
I don't. I've just been like silly.
Let's just chat rather than be formal and me ask you questions. Does it feel weird that this is where we did the podcast? That's where Paul used to sit. And that's where I used to sit.
It's quite sad, actually.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, I nearly cried again.
We're both kind of criers, aren't we?
I'm a crier, yeah. I never used to be, but I am now.
I wonder what is it about life that makes us want to cry, do you think?
I don't know.
What is it?
I don't know. I just over the years I've got much more comfortable being my authentic self. I'm an actor and I'm in my mid-40s now, but when I was in my early 20s I landed a dream role of playing Paul Ryder in the film 24-Hour Party People, and having been a Mondays fan, it was a dream job.
But the rock and roll mums, Paul and Shaun's mum Linda and Gaz Whelan's mum Sandra, weren't too impressed with the film. What aspect of it did you not like?
Well, there again, when they blamed the Mondays for the closure of factory, that always really griped me.
Yeah.
When I knew that wasn't true, but you just go along with it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you turn yourself grey. I went to see it, and I remember they were filming in Kent Close, where we used to live. But they didn't use our actual house because it went round like that and they couldn't get the camera van down. So they used a house on Weaver Avenue.
Me and Danny, who played Paul and Shaun, hit it off like that. In fact, the first day we ever met in the rehearsal room, in Ancoats, we were supposed to be having a band rehearsal, and we just worked our way through a few crates of Red Stripe, I think, or Stella or something like that, and it became like a running joke that it was like methadone acting. Not that anybody took methadone, but you know what I mean? It was like a tongue-in-cheek thing because we were partying, and Rowetta took us under her wing big time.
I didn't dislike it. I mean, you just accept it, don't you? I enjoyed it.
I just thought it was crap.
No, I didn't.
I don't know. I just didn't. I don't know. I mean, the music part in it I liked, but the rest I thought, it's a load of nonsense, this. I'm not very patient, am I?
She said, I'm going to get you to meet Paul. And we went to your house in Worsley, didn't we?
Yeah.
And me and Danny were worse for wear.
Yeah.
Which has always bothered me, really, knowing what I know about Paul now. But it was a world I didn't know about, like that he didn't drink at the time, and we turned up pretty much out of it. I think we'd been in the dry bar all day, and Rowetta picked us up and said he'll see you later. And I think we even brought beers into your house and we sat there drinking them.
What did you think of Steve Coogan's portrayal of Tony Wilson?
I thought it was very good.
Yes, that was excellent. It
was. It was very good.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Yeah.
So, if you were a film critic and you had to sum up the film in one sentence, what would you say about the film?
Not bad.
Well, I don't think
disappointing.
No, I wasn't disappointed.
Well, yeah, I was.
No,
yeah.
I just laughed.
Yeah.
Man, I laugh at weird things.
Well,
so.
yeah.
But it was a massive thing for us because we were fans of the band, and also we were taking it quite seriously about wanting to do everybody justice and not be caricatures and not kind of, get it right. To the point where I came out saying to Danny, I know I need to tone it down. He's quite quiet and he's quite shy and he's not brash and loud. And to the point where sometimes on set I would be doing less and in between takes I'd be pissing about and fooling about. I remember putting one of the lads' face in a pie one day or something in between a take, and Michael said, do that on camera. But when the camera was rolling, I would tone it down a bit because that may be a bit more Paul.
What about Paul's performance as the drug dealer, gangster?
I did laugh at that. Well, it was fiction, wasn't it? You take no notice of it. It's fiction.
It was all pretty much improvised. I mean, Frank Cottrell Boyce wrote a brilliant script, but it was pretty much a base starting point. I think we shot. For a 90-minute, 2-hour film, I think we shot over 200 hours of footage.
Wow.
I could be wrong there. I know it was a silly amount and it was multi-camera. There was a lot of cameras, I seem to remember.
Oh, wow.
It was handheld a lot of the time, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to remember, we were partying hard, so it's a bit hazy for us.
So 24-hour party people, you wouldn't say go and see it, it's brilliant.
Oh, I would.
Would you?
Yeah.
I don't think I would again. No, no.
I would.
I can't put my finger on what it was, but I don't know. It wasn't right.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it, no.
So I hit it off with Paul, or I thought I did, on set, because Paul would come down to set, wouldn't he? I mean, I don't know if you remember, you were probably working and stuff, but he'd come down to set with his pal, Robb. Was it Robb? His mate?
Oh yeah, Robb F, yeah.
And he'd knock about, and I was really quite taken with him. Bit of a fanboy, I suppose. But then not, because he was really just easy to get along with and very human, and I liked his energy, and he was really kind. Do you know what I mean? I nearly went then. He was just really kind and really generous.
Yeah.
Because, I think if someone was playing me in a film, not that that would ever happen, but I'd be a bit weirded out by it, probably. I don't know that he was. He was quite excited by it all.
Well, yeah, I suppose I did enjoy it in a way, but I didn't like it.
But it wasn't a film like a film.
Oh, no, didn't expect it to be, really.
And he was just really enthusiastic. And I guess we just hit it off, became friends. I liked his energy, and I guess we just got to know each other as friends.
Yeah.
And then obviously time rolled on, didn't it? And then a year later, I'm back in Manchester doing a play at the Royal Exchange. And I don't know whether it was him or you who asked, invited me to stay, or whether I invited myself. I honestly can't remember. But I really enjoyed living there, and spending more time with you.
Yeah.
And just hanging out. And he was making his album, his Big Arm album at the time.
I didn't expect to go and see a drama or a film like a film. I expected to be a bit Spinal Tappy, which it was.
Well, you see, Spinal Tap gets on my nerves. I'm not a great fan of Spinal Tap.
Yeah, it was kind of loosely based on fact, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Especially the Barbados thing. That was really exaggerated, like I spoke about earlier. I had a little part in it. Played this Manchester gangster. Don't know which one I was playing. It was like a mixture of two of the gangsters that was around at the time.
Yeah.
But as a movie, it was great. It was really good.
Okay, do you remember the day that you filmed?
Yes. They recreated the interior of the hacienda.
Hang on a minute, you've got some, or is it a cut? Oh yeah, it's better. Right. Do you remember? Do you remember the day that you filmed?
Yeah, the movie people recreated the interior of the nightclub, the hacienda, in a big old Victorian warehouse in Manchester, which is now apartments. But it was incredible what they did. I mean, it was just like it. It was just like the real thing, but inside a big warehouse. And on the night of the filming, it was like open as a club to invited guests.
Yeah.
And Mike Pickering DJ'd, and it was just like being inside the club.
Yeah.
Apart from when you went to the toilet, you opened the door and it was just a brick wall there because it was inside it was incredible what they did.
Yeah.
Down to every dimension they had. I think they got the old what do you call it, blueprints.
Yeah.
Of Ben Kelly. Is it Ben Kelly? I think they got the old blueprints and did it all to the dimensions of the club.
Yeah.
What an incredible night.
Yeah.
I think Bernard Sumner said we should buy the building and keep it open. Yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah.
Now apartments, though, just like all the old Victorian places in Ancoats.
And what was the part that you played? A gangster?
A gangster, yeah. Extorting money off Tony inside the club. It was. I had fun doing it. I like a bit of acting.
Yeah, you've done quite a bit in your
I've
time,
done a bit,
haven't you?
yeah.
What else
yeah.
have you been in?
Machine Gun Kelly video. I had the main part in that.
Yeah. You never got paid for that.
Never got paid for that. Like everything, really, in my life. Never get paid for it. I had a bit part in another TV show in England. I was the house band on Turn On Terry, which is one of your programmes.
Let's have a look at it. You rewrote the lyrics to sweet soul music to fit in with the show, from what I remember.
So turn on Terry, don't be baby. Gonna watch the show, got to watch the show. Here's the show, let's go.
Yeah, with Terry Christian.
Yeah.
And Tony Wilson and John Robb were the regular...
There was the pundits.
The pundits.
Yeah.
Well, Turn On Terry is like a series. It's basically a reviews programme on telly which you made, and Terry was the main host. And it was great having Paul as a house band. You know, that's always the old thing about Happy Mondays, isn't it? All those guys in that band, they work really well in showbiz, even though they were quite mad people and quite renegade people. Any opportunity, any kind of showbiz, they can do it, and it doesn't blemish them.
It's good being the house band.
Yeah.
You don't have to play a full song.
Did you see the soaps? Did you watch the soaps? So what's new? Let's go.
We didn't have a budget, so what we had to do was we got the band to come in 5 different outfits.
That's right.
and we recorded. You were like performing all the stings between the segments of the show, and we recorded them all in one day and just rotated them throughout the series of 28 episodes.
You're giving away secrets.
I know. It saved us a load of money though.
Yeah, I enjoy a bit of acting.
Yeah. That wasn't
I'm doing
acting.
some. Yeah, well, it was kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
Being on stage is a bit like acting. Playing the bass is a bit like acting. You know.
Do you enjoy being looked at by people?
Hate it.
So why do you enjoy acting then?
Because there's not an audience there.
But when you're on stage, there is.
I know. That's why I get stage fright, knowing that people are looking at me.
Paul, of course, would be sick at the side of the stage before he went on every single night, because he was always stage fright. So he'd throw up at the side of the stage, go on.
He was never confident. He did suffer terrible from nerves. Terrible from nerves. Oh, he'd be sick, he'd be running to the loo.
But you must love it at the same time when people clap.
I love being in a band, and I like playing live, but I don't like being looked at. You know, playing in a small club is more nerve-wracking than a big arena.
When he did his big arm stuff, he was great, and he was a great frontman. I remember that. Ironically, the first gig he did at King's Arms in Salford is the first gig I'm doing in a couple of weeks, and I go back, and it's really weird. And I remember walking up the stairs of the room upstairs, and he was shaking at the top of the stairs. I said, "No one's judging you. You'll be right." And he went, "I know." I said, "You'll be fine." And as I walked past, I went, "Fucking, how are you going to do that? Fucking singing, everyone looking at you." And he said, and as I walked past, he went, "I heard you."
Okay, so Big Arm was happening. You've been touring with Ian Brown.
Yeah.
The house in France was all going well. We were renting it out. And then we'd invited one of my good friends, Rosemary Barrett, who was a journalist for the Manchester Evening News, and she did some writing for the Sunday Mirror.
Yeah.
She was coming over with her husband and 4 kids.
4 kids.
To come and do a travel feature featuring our property.
Yeah.
We were heading for the ferry at Dover, and all I remember is that we were running really late and it was really stressful. And then as we were coming down into Dover, you come down a hill, I could see the ferry leaving the port, and I thought, oh no, because you were planning something. I think we were going to go out to an Italian restaurant, weren't we? And I thought, oh no, that's scuppered the plans. So I remember we got to the port, and myself or John rang you just to say, oh, look, we've missed the ferry and we've got to hang around, wait for the next one. And you said, oh, that's fine. Maybe we won't go out for the Italian. I'll get Paul to light the fire. Put the fire on because it hasn't been lit all year or something. We'll light the fire and get it warmed up, and we'll have takeaway. So we thought, great, that sounds fantastic. Get the fire on. But then we didn't realise that when we got there was an actual fire. So when we were on the boat, that was it. We came over on the boat, and then as we were coming into land at the other side, there's a voice message from you, which John reads out to me, and he says, Angie's just left this message about maybe not to come because the chateau's on fire. So I laughed and I went, oh God, she's just joking. That's not, she's joking. That's not real. And he went, why would she joke about that? And I was absolutely convinced that it was just like a little practical joke. Anyway, it wasn't. So I remember I think you'd said, maybe you should stay in the port or get some accommodation. We're thinking, we have no idea what we're going to do. So anyway, we ended up making our way over to see you, didn't we, in the village, and arrived and followed the plumes of smoke. Arrived to find you, taking a wee in the bushes.
And at the same time, we had 2 guys that were antique experts that we were potentially going to do a show with.
Yeah.
With them showing people around antique shops in France, and my friend Alan Howard was with us.
I'd been there the week beforehand, and my ex-wife and kids were in the top floor in the James Bond suite with the golden sparkly bath that was like the king of kitsch room. It was superb. That day, we'd gone out to view a potential brocante little markets in Calais. And while we were there, we get a phone call from Paul saying, oh, I think we've got a problem. I think the roof might be on fire. And one of the things that I remembered actually prior to this was that Paul loved a roaring fire. And I'll never forget what he used to do. I mean, we got a fire here. And what you do is you put like a half a matchbox size of firelighter and a couple of bits of kindling in, and then you kind of build it up slowly. But not if you're Paul. If you're Paul, you grab a handful of firelighters, you put 2 foot of kindling on, you throw a match on, and it goes whoosh, and the flames go roaring up the chimney. And that was Paul's way of starting the fire. And he's right, it was a roaring fire. But on this particular occasion, we get a phone call from Paul saying, I think we've got a problem. I think the roof's on fire.
So there was me, Alan Howard and the 2 antique guys.
Mm-hmm.
You and Sonny and Chico were in the house. I was out with Alan and the 2 antique guys. Rosemary and her husband John and their 4 kids were on the way. They were on the ferry in Dover.
Yeah.
I got a phone call from you
God,
saying... And I've never heard you so panicked ever, I don't think, saying, what number do I call for the fire brigade? Tell me about that. What happened?
Well, the roof was on fire.
So you go back a bit. So you were sitting in the living room, the boys were on the Xbox.
Yeah, and I had a fire going, a real fire in the fireplace.
Yeah.
Which was... It was roaring. It was a nice fire because it was a winter's night.
Yeah.
I think it was
October.
October, yeah. So it was lovely and warm, and I looked up and saw like the roof was on fire, the ceiling. That's when I called you saying it's on fire. What do I do?
Coming up on the next episode, I thought of something really funny that happened.
You're going to tell the story going to Cannes. To the film festival.
Michael Winston was so blown away by his acting. He just said he really plays sinister well to play this secure, what was he going to call them, but the gangsters really, who ran the door. And he was really impressed with his acting.
I was very relieved during the movie that when he was on the tour bus, naked, that when he turned round he had a big cock.
I know!
I was so pleased. It was like, yeah, go on.
There was a duality there around one person that was an addict and a real desperate addict, and another person I couldn't relate to that just wasn't an addict. And I think for me, if I'm really looking in, I think there was a lot of sorrow from him about the fact that he was an addict and just didn't want to be.
He smiled at me and said, I'm a race car driver from the 70s and I'm supposed to be dead. And it was like, no way.
What do you mean by that?
Well, he faked his own death.
We're playing out with John Pennington, aka Gianni Panettone's remix of Big Arm's Sunrays, which was actually a bit of a club hit in Ibiza when everyone thought it was Moby's remix. Thank you so much for watching, and to those of you who join us for the chat on Sundays here on YouTube at 8 PM UK time, we really love that you come, and we're going to have some more surprise guests coming up in the chat really soon. Please subscribe to this channel if you've not done so already, and please join our special club by becoming a patron of the show and go to patreon.com/the Paul Ryder Tapes and join us as a special founding member. New limited edition merch is being released first to our patrons, so don't miss out. Join us again next week, same time, same place. Thank you to all our guests, and big love as usual goes to the star of the show, the one, the only, the late and great Paul Anthony Ryder.
Suitcase full of dough, not sure where to go. It's gonna be hot, that's all I know. Got a long, long way to go with my case full of dough. Where I'll stop, I do not know.
Do you know much about names that he used to give people?
No, I didn't know this until the funeral. Victor said he went through the list of names, didn't he?
Yeah.
And there was one for Ian Brown, and there was Paul Popplewell crazy for me, which made me laugh. Coming from one of the Happy Mondays.
And they were going, how much to me? And he went, the cheeky bastard, because I've got a tracksuit on.
Hello and welcome. This is episode 14 of the Paul Ryder Tapes, where Happy Monday's founding member and bass player Paul Ryder sat down with me, his ex-wife Angela Smith, to tell his unfiltered life story. And then 12 days after we finished recording, he passed away suddenly. Coming up in this episode.
It was kind of, yeah, it's bad, isn't it? And it's like, Paul, mate, that's your house burning down. It's more than bad. That probably is like just another night in the world of the Happy Mondays.
I got back to the hotel and puked up. The emotions was, I don't even know exactly what I was feeling, but it made me physically sick.
Michael Winterbottom was so blown away by his acting. He just said he really plays sinister well to play this gangsters, really, who ran the door.
Don't put that in. Don't put that in. Oh dear, look at me.
We left off the last episode as the house we'd bought in France was on fire.
Yeah, and I had a fire going, a real fire in the fireplace.
Yeah.
Which was, it was roaring. It was a nice fire because it was a winter's night.
Yeah.
I think it was
October.
October, yeah. So it was lovely and warm, and I looked up and saw like the roof was on fire. The ceiling, that's when I called you saying it's on fire, what do I do?
You were outside though smoking, weren't you? Didn't you go outside for a cigarette and that's when you saw the roof on fire?
That's when I saw the roof on fire, yeah.
And I said, I don't know the number for the fire brigade, but go and ask Norbert, who lives across, or go and ask Monsieur Lanel, who lived next door.
Yeah.
So we had quite a long driveway, so I could hear you on the other end of the phone walking down the driveway.
Yeah.
And I heard you knocking on the door, and you said, he's not in. I said, well, go across the street to Norbert.
That's right,
so I heard you walk across the street, rat-a-tat-tat on Norbert's door, and I heard you go, Norbert, fire, and I heard you go, commotion. And then you came back on the phone to me and you said...
No, you said, where's Sonny and Chico?
No, you didn't.
Oh,
you said to me, what shall I do about the children? You'd left the two boys in the house that was burning.
Yes. I didn't think it was dangerous at the time because it was on the roof. I didn't think about things falling down. But like, I got them out safely.
Said, get them out!
Yeah.
Get them out! And then the phone cut off.
Oh.
So I was driving through the forest in a dead zone, not knowing whether my kids were perishing in a fire for about 5 minutes until I could get hold of you on the phone again. And you said, it's okay, they're out, it's fine. And at that point, I didn't really care whether the house burned down or not, as long as everybody was okay. Our friend, former MTV producer Alan Howard, was staying with us at the time, and I was out with him when I got the call saying that the place was on fire.
There was that moment as we were driving down the country lane, and we turn a corner and there's beautiful rolling pine forest either side, and in the middle there's this plume of smoke coming up that was your house. And so we go flying down there and pull into the village, which is a pretty small village, pretty small little French village, and there's three or four even big French fire engines there pumping God knows how many litres of water into the building. And when we got there, the fireman said to me, my car was parked right next to the chateau, and he was basically saying, voiture, allez, allez. And I kind of knew enough French to know that meant get your bloody car moved. So I jumped into my lovely little Golf convertible I had at the time and drove it as quick as I could straight onto the lawn. And just as I did that, there was this big lump of the roof came flying down and just crashed right where my car was, like 10 seconds previously, which was kind of scary. You get like, Jesus, that was a close call. And we, I think the next hour or so, we probably just watched the chateau burning down.
And it really did burn down the whole east
Half
wing.
of it, yeah. And the whole village came out to watch it. They all had sandwiches and drinks, didn't they?
Yeah, they all
it
came
was like
out to...
there was a show on in the village.
we was just stood
rubberneck.
there like idiots watching the house burn.
Paul was inordinately calm, as I remember, and it was almost like it was happening in slow motion. It was kind of, yeah, it's bad, isn't it? And it's like, Paul, mate, that's your house burning down. It's more than bad. But he was like he always was. He was like very kind of subdued is possibly the word. But yeah, no, I would have expected him to be a little bit more concerned about what was going on. But he just kind of took everything in his stride.
You filmed it on the night, because I remember saying to you, Alan, get your camera, and you filmed a bit with me, and I said, this is all I've got left in the world, a cup. That's all I've got left in the world, a cup. My house is just burning down. And there was a little bit of footage of the flames burning, but very, very little. I don't think you felt comfortable filming too much that night.
It wasn't a case of I felt comfortable. It was a case of like I didn't really know. I mean, if I'd kind of been, don't know. There was a mass when your house was burning down, and I kind of felt like filming it wasn't the best thing I could do for you guys. I think.
Yeah. And that's when Rosemary and
John and their 4 kids.
That's when they turned up.
Yeah.
We arrived and we thought we were coming to a nice warm chateau and a takeaway meal. But we came to find it it was like flames. Very warm chateau. Yeah, very warm chateau, exactly. With flames shooting out of the roof.
It's like, I think we might have to stay somewhere else for the next few days.
Yeah, that was devastating, really.
Yeah,
what happened to it? We just finished it.
But the firemen did rescue a lot of the stuff, didn't they?
Yeah,
moved the piano and all kinds of furniture from one side to the other.
Yeah, they did a great job.
And we stayed there till about midnight watching it burn down while the fire brigade was trying to put the flames out.
Yeah.
And somebody in the village had a big place and like a dormitory type thing where school kids went, so they let us stay there.
Let us stay there.
So we were very fortunate about the French tradition that the village have to accommodate anybody whose house burns down. So we ended up spending the night in this wonderful hostel that was absolutely freezing. There was no heating. I think we slept in our clothes with all our coats on the bed. And I think we ended up boiling a kettle and making pot noodles with what was it like we end up putting sausages in the kettle or something, didn't we?
And then the next morning we got up and I walked back with you to the house expecting a pile of ash.
Mm-hmm.
And actually I was really surprised and happy that half of the house was untouched.
Completely untouched.
And the other half wasn't too bad, apart from a lot of water damage from the firemen's water.
Mm-hmm.
But the roof was burned off.
The roof was off.
And our beloved We called it the porno suite, the
Yeah,
room with the
Jason King suite, yeah.
No,
yeah.
it wasn't the Jason King suite.
Oh,
it was
right.
the one with the gold bath.
Oh, right.
That's obviously where the fire had started,
Yeah.
and that was absolutely black and ashen and completely and utterly destroyed.
The bath was gone.
The bath was gone. I mean, it was just literally ash, wasn't it?
I went back the next morning, and it was just extraordinary. There was the whole place was, well, the whole top of the house was. We walked in and there was just like water from the fire engines pouring through the ceiling still. The walls were just, the supporting walls were just charcoal. You could literally pull off lumps of charcoal and write your name on the wall. We went up to the bedroom, which we probably shouldn't have gone up those stairs considering, but we went up into the bedroom where there was no roof anymore, where my kids and ex had been the night before. And on the beds they were sleeping on, there was just the metal frames of the beds left because it had all been burnt away. And the James Bond golden bath had melted.
It completely melted. That the whole bath was no. It was burnt to a cinder. The bath.
There's footage somewhere of us walking round the house, and Paul. And basically, I'm saying to Paul, "How you feeling? Tell me." And it's like, "Oh yeah, it was a bit funny old night." It's like, Paul, mate. I remember he had a little hat on, and he was walking around, and it was, I don't know, it was like just another night, really. And I if that probably is like just another night in the world of the Happy Mondays, it probably was like that.
I had a lovely fire going just in there, burning nicely, ready for the guests to arrive. And then the smoke alarms went off. And I looked up and saw flames coming out the roof.
I asked our cameraman from the Manchester office, Phil Smethurst, to come over to France for a few days and help film some of the aftermath of the fire. Paul went to the airport to pick him up. He's also a cameraman and editor on this show.
I remember being nervous going to meet him because I knew of the Mondays. Do you know, clearly, do you know, I was a big indie kid at the time, so I was like, I was quite nervous about meeting him because I'd not really met many celebs at the time, like. And then we got in the car and he was just the soundest bloke. I think we just chatted nonsense pretty much for 2 hours. But yeah, he was it's kind of. I don't think I was necessarily shocked, but it gave me a certain introduction to celebs and going, no, right, do you know what? They're just normal people, aren't they? Really. It was like a castle. It's a castle in a village. And then I think we saw it from the front, which didn't look damaged. And then when we sort of pulled up and came round the front, I was like, it's both amazing and it's completely and utterly gutted on one side of the house. I remember taking GVs of having water dripping from the chandeliers and stuff. And then I was straight in with the camera and it was like, it's an insane place. And then it's also just had an insane amount of damage. It's just like, it was shocking in both ways, really. It was like shocked at the size of the place and then shocked at the damage that was caused from the fire. But he wasn't fazed. He just seemed to take it in his stride that his big house in France had half gone. And yet, it was like just another day in the life of Paul Ryder, I suppose. And we went on a tour of everything. What sticks in my head, and only because we've revisited the footage quite a lot, was the fox.
Hey, his tail's burnt off.
Where's the fire? Where's the fire?
And so we decided that we would have to stay in France to sort this all out. And so we put the boys in school, in the local village school.
Oh, yes, I remember that. They hated it.
Yeah.
They hated it.
They hated it.
And then the kids going to school, we filmed a lot with the kids going in. I don't know if it had they been in a bit or had they not. I know they were heartbroken about having to go, and I know that you and Paul were both heartbroken at having to sort of leave them there.
I mean, I can't believe why I was so adamant that they were only tiny. Like, why was I making them go to school? Like, with hindsight now, I think they didn't need to go to school at that age, like for a couple of months. They could have had a couple of months off.
It's only a classroom. It's a classroom. Come on, Fanny's waiting. Fanny's waiting.
you try to do what's best, don't you? You try to do what's right. But there's a fine line between making them do something that really traumatises them.
Daddy said a naughty word when the fire was going. On the roof. It was shit.
We then had a lot of fun and games with insurance assessors. Remember the 2 insurance companies that were vying for our business?
Yeah.
There were 2 insurance assessors fighting for our business that almost came to blows because they both wanted to represent us because they get a cut of it.
Yeah.
And then we finally agreed on one. But the first job that had to be done was waterproofing the roof. So tell us about those roofers that came to...
So we was kind of forced to live in France. We'd spoke about moving there quite a few times, and forced by fire to live there while we sorted the half of the house that was burnt down. So we got a roof around who put up this tarpaulin and like tried to make it waterproof, but it rained, and it was just such a bad job. It ruined everything that was left inside the house because it was letting water in.
Do you remember him looking for his lyrics book?
I do, yeah. He had a bag, it was like a brown leather bag that he was like, and I don't know, it just meant a lot to him. I think it was just quite a small book, wasn't it? Just a little scrapbook full of lyrics that you would have imagined would be ruined given the amount of water. And I think he found it in the kitchen, the lower kitchen, underneath where the turret had completely like been destroyed, and then found this bag, and somehow in this leather or faux leather bag he found this book that had barely any damage to it. It looked like a minor spill at best.
No way. Survived. Soaking wet, but it's there.
So the whole house was completely ruined on that one half, and everything had to be gutted and rebuilt.
Completely rebuilt.
Yeah.
Done. Done.
Okay. So we're back.
Hi.
Although, it was a bit heavy yesterday's session, wasn't it?
Very heavy. I got back to the hotel and puked up.
Really?
The emotions was... I don't know exactly what I was feeling, but it made me physically sick.
Why do you think that was?
It was like a therapy session. Heavy therapy session yesterday.
Yeah.
Just brought up a load of old stuff.
Yeah.
Very heavy.
I wanted to say, I feel like I'm focusing on all the bad stuff.
Oh.
And first of all, I feel like I need to say to you that it's really brave that you're doing this.
Oh, thank you.
And I just want to acknowledge that it's really brave what you're doing. And,
I don't normally do interviews.
I know.
Especially in depth like this from my ex-wife.
Who knows all the secrets?
Oh.
No, but I mean, I'm hoping that it'll help some people, especially people who are struggling with addiction, and especially also partners of people that are struggling with addiction.
Yeah.
To hear the other stories, to know that they're not alone and that the struggle is real.
I hope it helps somebody, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, you've already been approached by somebody who told you that you are responsible for them taking heroin.
Yeah.
But I hope you're also responsible for people approaching you and saying you inspired them to get into recovery.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Because, like, why are we given these trials and tribulations in our lives? There's got to be a reason, hasn't there?
There has to be a reason to get where I am today, for you to get where you are today.
Yeah.
I think we're both living good lives right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are.
I think we have to go through that shit.
But from a today perspective, for me, I've kind of processed it all and it's fine. And then when you go into it and you start talking about it, you realise it really wasn't fine at the time.
I was quite sick.
It was really, really traumatic.
Yeah.
And I think that it's easy to underestimate the toll that it takes on you.
Very much so.
And also the other thing that I want to come across is that and you can say this with more authority than me, but addiction isn't a choice. Addiction is a disease.
Definitely.
And I'm not trying to excuse any of the behaviour, but addiction isn't simply, oh, I just want to get off my head because I want to have a party. It's about medicating a pain.
Yeah.
And I think, I might have said this before, but I think that the problem with getting clean, and I've witnessed this with you, is that if you don't address the reasons that you picked up in the first place, you still have that pain. And what do you do with that pain if you don't process that and get rid of it in some sense? Then you just look for, if you put the drugs down, you look for another way to medicate that pain.
Yeah, you swap addictions, or for me it was getting therapy afterwards, after doing the detox, going to therapy for so many years that helped me stay clean.
But it's not a quick fix, is it?
No.
You can't just do a month and then come out and then you fix because you've had a few group therapy sessions.
No, but I carried on with therapy after that initial 3 months in Venice, in California.
Yeah.
You know.
But no, I salute you.
Thank you
no,
very much.
No, seriously, it's like...
I salute you for putting up with me.
Well, there's a question mark over whether that was the right thing to do for me at the time.
That's true.
But you just deal with it day to day, don't you? You do what is right for you at the time.
That's why they say just one day at a time.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
But you do have a choice.
Yeah.
As a partner of somebody who's an addict,
yeah.
You do have a choice. You can't control what they do, but you can control what you do.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it feels impossible to step away from somebody that you love.
Yeah.
Especially when you recognise that it's a disease and it isn't really just a choice, which, you know, people who are not affected by addiction.
Yeah, I think it's more recognised over here in America as a disease than it is in England.
Yeah.
It's definitely recognised more as a disease.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What can be done though? Like, what is the solution?
Wow. For using addicts?
Yeah.
Well, I've always said, because I did it through NA and AA, I've always said they're not the only way. It all depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's other ways of doing the sobriety thing. Mm-hmm. You just got to find out what's right for you.
Mm. But what's the first step?
The detox.
Yeah.
Get a good detox.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So is it just lack of resources, do you think? Like if detoxes were easier to come by and not as expensive?
Yeah, definitely.
Detox and aftercare.
Detox,
and aftercare,
support groups, personal therapy. You got to follow it up with something.
Mm. Yeah.
It's like you said, you just left empty, still with the disease.
Yeah.
Festering.
Yeah.
Doing its push-ups, just waiting for you to relapse.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So thank you for sharing your story and laying it all out.
That's cool.
Okay, so we were talking about 24-hour party people.
Yeah.
And I thought of something really funny that happened.
You're going to tell the story going to Cannes, to the film festival. Go on.
So,
and I couldn't even get in my own party afterwards.
Oh, really?
After the premiere, we couldn't get in.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Oh, it took us like half an hour to get through the fucking...
Oh, and you were in the band as well.
Yeah.
There was a... Okay, let's go back to the beginning. So the movie was being screened at the Cannes Film Festival. And It was a big event.
Big event.
And the key actors from the film were invited, including you.
Mm-hmm.
And I came with you.
Yeah.
And for some reason, there was a mix-up with the tickets. And we ended up being sat with the public rather than sat with the film people.
Yeah.
And and when it was when the screening was over, we were herded out with all of the regular people and not down the important people's exit. and we were herded out, and this photographer stopped us and wanted to take pictures of us.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, he's recognised you, he knows who you are. And so we posed for these pictures feeling like we were really important. And then he handed us his card and said, oh, it'd be $300 each, or €300 each for the pictures. And he was just one of these fly-by-night photographers trying to make a few euros on the side.
Another Spinal Tap moment in my life.
It was funny.
When 24-hour party people came out,
yeah,
and we went to the print works to see it, there was all these younger people, and there's me and Derek. When the lights came up at the end and we stood up, these two oldies.
It was funny. It was like we went from being, oh, we're really important, to like, oh, actually, no, we're not.
And all these young people was looking at us as if we'd got 3 heads.
So the cast of the band who played the roles of the Mondays in the film were playing a gig in Cannes at the party for its premiere, and Paul Ryder was going to join them for a few songs. I wanted to get the take of Paul Popplewell, who played the role of Paul Ryder in the film and became good friends with Paul as a result. But a family of crickets had invaded our studio, and I wanted them to be quiet. Oh, this is ridiculous.
Where are they? In there?
They're like in the top of the boxes, I think.
Oh, right. They make a nest.
Yeah, I think so.
I thought it was crap.
Somebody paid for the lads who played the Happy Mondays to have 2 weeks, maybe a week or two, in a studio in Manchester to rehearse, to do 5 or 6 songs at the premiere.
Rowetta was in the film too, playing herself.
Paul played his own bass. With the baggy undies, we called them, or what, crappy undies, whatever we called them. So we did, I think we did the rap party at the Astoria. We did one at the Astoria. We did a diesel party at Fabric, and we did Cannes Film Festival, which is incredible, really, to play when it was up for a Palme d'Or. I think that was, and there was a lot of pride there. Tony Wilson was with us as well.
I wish I could be more like you, really, because I go in, woof, and then I think, why did you do that? Why did you do it?
You said to me, I say what I think, and I said to you, I think what before I say it.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah.
Linda does think, I don't think. And I go, woof, and then I think, I shouldn't have done that.
Paul Popplewell was doing a play on the night of the party in Cannes, so Paul Ryder played at the party instead, and Paul Popplewell flew in after the show.
I arrived at the villa when people were sort of getting ready to go to bed, or had a couple of days in Cannes, and I really ought not to have gone because I was supposed to start filming something else on the Monday. Ironically, we were starting a BBC film called Rehab in London.
Rowetta was there as well. She was singing with them.
Yeah. But it took us an hour to get in the place. It wasn't letting us in. Another Spinal Tap moment. Couldn't get in my own party.
But it was a fun time, wasn't it? It was a really fun time. And that movie was directed by Michael Winterbottom, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Amazing director.
Of course, they discovered Michael Winterbottom was so blown away by his acting. He just said he really plays sinister well to play this secure, what are you going to call them, but the gangsters really, who ran the door. And he was really impressed with his acting.
I think that was really good for Paul as well to do some acting.
Absolutely, and because Michael Winterbottom really, he said he's just a natural. He was really impressed.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, and Paul Popplewell, who played you, actually ended up staying with us when they were filming, and became really good friends with him.
We went to his wedding.
Yeah.
I was very relieved during the movie that when he was on the tour bus, naked, that when he turned round he had a big cock.
I know.
I was so pleased. It was like, yeah, go on.
I can't say this without blushing.
You can.
I regret doing it, is the truth.
Why?
Well, doing a full frontal.
Why?
Wow, come on, it wasn't necessary, and I've got kids now. I'd love to show my kids that film, but how do you show your kids a film that you get your bits out in?
You didn't do anything bad with it though, did you? You didn't use it as a lethal weapon.
No, but Rowetta used a whip as a lethal weapon and smacked my ass. in the same scene.
Your kids would appreciate the art, the
They're a bit-
artist. Just
they're a-
tell them the director made you do
They're a
it.
bit young yet, but yeah, I know Paul was pleased about that. But I'm not going to say that. Don't put that in. Don't put that in. Oh dear, look at me. Don't put that in.
Okay, so during that point, we bought the house in France, which we talked about last time. And one of my strongest memories of France was you, again, struggling with your heroin addiction. And we planned to go to Prague because when we'd gone to New York to film the flashbacks video, which was the Big Arm video, I went to the place where I used to live when I lived in New York in 1986. And in the place next door to where I used to live, there was this sign in the window, and it said, if you're a struggling heroin addict, look into Ibogaine. So we started researching Ibogaine.
What a strange substance that is.
So Ibogaine is something that is found in the root
of the Tabernacus ibogaine plant.
Oh, that's
Only
right.
found in the southern tip of Cameroon.
That's right.
That's where it grows.
Yeah. And apparently several decades ago, some heroin addicts in New York had all taken Ibogaine, because it's a bit like ayahuasca, I think, like it's psychoactive, you go on some sort of weird trip.
Yeah.
But the weird thing was that these heroin addicts that took it recreationally, the next couple of weeks found that they had no desire to use heroin again.
And no bad detox.
And no bad detox.
No cold turkey, no anything.
And so a professor from, I believe, Miami was investigating it and was doing research into it. And it had started, this was like about 20 years ago, it had started to get some sort of recognition. So I did some homework and I found a guy in Prague that performed Ibogaine therapy for heroin addicts. So we booked flights to Prague.
Why didn't you come?
Because the night before, Chico had gone weird, had some sort of blood sugar issue and had to go into the hospital in France.
Right.
So we ended up not being able to go with you, so you went on your own to Prague to meet this guy that we'd never met before. Who was going to perform this extremely dangerous therapy, because apparently if you take heroin on top of the Ibogaine, you die. It's as simple as that. And that's why
it makes the heroin stronger.
Yeah, I think subsequently it's not really been explored any further because of the risks with it. But,
very risky.
So tell us about that trip to Prague.
Oh God, it was like, I ended up on this like housing estate, communist Prague. Well, you know, them big sprawling like flats that they have.
Yeah.
I ended up there, thinking I was stuck in communist country, but it obviously wasn't, because it had started to open up to the Western world.
Yeah.
And he gave me this Ibogaine, and I've never took anything like it in my life. It's not like LSD. It's not like anything. But it sent me on a weird trip where I thought I was in communist Russia, and I thought he was trying to kill me.
Wow.
So I got on the phone to you and said, "What's going on? I've no idea what this stuff is. It's sending me on a weird one," and you had to calm me down and say everything was okay, just to get on with it.
But I didn't even know that everything was okay.
I
I'm
know.
stuck in France with the kids. You're in Prague in a high-rise building with some guy that we'd never met, and he was kind of strange, wasn't he, the guy?
Yeah, nice guy, but a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Especially when you've taken Ibogaine, he kind of got weirder.
Yeah.
But his heart was in the right place. He was helping addicts. He helped a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because you can't just take it and be on your own. You got to have somebody
Yeah.
watching you.
Yeah. But then 2 weeks later, you had to do it again.
Yeah.
And you did it again in the house in France.
Mhm.
And I remember our friend Jeanette Jackson was there.
Yeah.
Jeanette's a really good friend of ours. She's a biochemist, a nutritional therapist, and she's a radio DJ with her own show on Rossendale Radio 104.7 FM.
So Paul picked me up from the airport, and Paul really was the addict then. I mean, he was not in a good place then. I'd never seen Paul like that, like an addict, like twitchy and, you know, just very different to what I'd seen of him. But one, he was the addict that turned up, and two, he was an addict that was going through a detox very soon. So he was highly strung. He was nervous. He was anxious. And we got to the car, and we were just about to get in the car, and he was going to start a cigarette, light a cigarette. And I said, Paul, please, honestly, I'm not being funny, but I can't get in the car with you smoking. Like, it'll make me feel sick. I can't do it. So he wasn't happy, and so then we had to stop, honestly, every 2 to 3 miles so that Paul could get out of the car and have a cigarette. So a 2.5-hour journey, which should have been, took well over 4.5 hours, because every 2 to 3 miles Paul got out of the car to have a cigarette. Which was just hilarious on some level, but like really frustrating on others.
I remember walking down in the village with her, and you were about to do this, and she said to me, Angela, it's just another Tuesday afternoon. You just have to think it's just a regular Tuesday afternoon.
Wow, that's good
never
advice.
Forgotten that. Yeah, I've never forgotten that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just another Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
My memory of being with Paul at the chateau on his heroin detox was Paul was in the attic, right at the top of the chateau, and you and I were downstairs in the lounge in the kitchen at the bottom of the chateau, like a long way away from each other. And Paul was in a room going through torture. And I really mean torture. Like, my memory of hearing Paul crying and screaming and howling like an animal howling as he came off, or he was going through this Ibogaine detox.
See, I have no recollection of that at all. Isn't it weird how we selectively remember things or selectively block things out? I don't remember hearing him howling. All I remember is you and me walking through the village. We went for a walk. We were walking, and I remember the exact spot where I was in the village. And you said to me, go on, tell me what you remember what you said.
Well, because whilst Paul was going through this Ibogaine detox, because it was so, you know, horrifying, the screams and the howls, and time seemed to stand still in the chateau. Like, we lost days, it seemed to me, and it was bleak and it was scary. And so eventually you and I went off to the market and said we need to get out. And when we got out to the market, there was life, people chatting. It was just another day. And I turned to you and said, Angela, it's just a Tuesday. It's just a Tuesday. Because you and I being in that chateau whilst Paul was going through this detox was like being in a different, really different world. So when we realised it was Tuesday, we both kind of came back to the now and went, oh, it's Tuesday. Yeah, it was a strange, yeah, it was surreal, wasn't it? Yeah, absolutely surreal.
And it was very hard to actually grasp that concept, but when I did, it really helped me. It was like, oh, right, yeah, it is. It's just another Tuesday afternoon. It wasn't, though, because you were doing this psychoactive drug that could have killed you in our France house.
It's a good way to look at it, though.
Yeah.
Just another Tuesday afternoon.
So, did it work?
Yeah, it works. It's a really good detox. It's over the height of it only lasts for 45 minutes, but you still kind of under the influence hours later because it takes it out of you. Mm-hmm. But the main bulk of it is a 45-minute kind of trip.
Yeah.
But not like LSD.
I think he deeply wanted to be clean. I think he, it was almost like a different part of him was the addict. That's what I picked up on. Like, he really wanted to be clean. And when, like, for example, when he came out and had that coffee and cigarette early morning, there wasn't an addict there. He just wasn't an addict. He was just a bloke with a lovely house in France, having a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, listening to the birds. So for me, there was a duality there around one person that was an addict and a real desperate addict, and another person I couldn't relate to that just wasn't an addict. And I think for me, if I'm really looking in, I think there was a lot of sorrow from him about the fact that he was an addict and just didn't want to be one.
And tell me, I remember you saying you met some spirit...
Oh, my ancestors.
Yeah.
That's what it's used as a rite of passage in the Cameroon for the tribes. They use it as a rite of passage to meet their ancestors and come of age. And I did meet my ancestors. Incredible it was.
What, you actually saw them?
Yeah, this head spinning round like holograms.
Yeah.
While I got my eyes shut.
Yeah, I remember you used to say, I've been to the spirit world.
Spirit world, yeah. I've been to the spirit world.
Yeah.
It took me to the spirit world.
Was it good?
It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sorted a lot of stuff out.
A few years later, we contacted him again, and he said he'd stopped doing it because one of his clients had died.
Yeah.
But I think, again, it was because they'd snuck some heroin in there.
I think they did, yeah.
However, it scared him enough to...
Yeah, he stopped doing it. He helps a lot of people, but he doesn't do it anymore.
We're simply sharing Paul's experience with Ibogaine. We're not trying to convince anybody to try it. If you do want to try it, please make sure that you go to a place where it is legal and you do have proper medical supervision.
It was used in the 1800s as a tincture in France.
Right.
And then they banned it later on.
Right.
But it was used as a kind of a tincture.
Therapeutic tincture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had a little bit of clean time at that point.
Yeah.
But it didn't last, did it?
Didn't last, no.
And it didn't last probably because you didn't, again, like with any detox, you have to follow through with working out where the issue came from in the first place.
Yeah. I had no backup system.
Yeah.
I was just left on my own, raw.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then you started getting implants. Remember the implants?
Oh my God, yeah. I think I held the record at that clinic for the most implants.
Right, talk about what those implants were. Naltrexone.
Naltrexone implants. I had them in my arms, my stomach. I think I did about a year on them, didn't I?
Yeah, so talk about what the mechanism of action
Well, the
is.
opiate blocker,
Right.
the naltrexone.
Yeah.
And you have a little operation where they insert a naltrexone capsule into your arm or into your stomach.
Yeah.
And if you take opiates, you just don't feel them. They just do not work.
And you tested it out, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I tested it. Damn right I did. And it didn't work. They did what they were supposed to do.
But again, once more, it didn't fix you because you weren't fixing yourself.
No, exactly, yeah. That's why I say following up with something like one-on-one therapy or group therapy is very important.
And did you get to the root of what was driving your addiction during all this therapy? Did you figure out what it was?
Oh, there was a few things.
Yeah.
Childhood stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And you really think that was the trigger for everything?
Yeah.
Do you not think that it was about having too much too soon and fame and being drugs all over you, the bands? Did that not play a part?
That played a part, yeah. When you're young as well, when I was in my 20s, you just think you're invincible and you can do all that stuff and it's going to last forever.
Yeah.
But you can't live in Shangri-La forever.
No. One of the other places that you went to was Eric Clapton's clinic in Antigua.
Oh yeah, I had 2 stints in there.
Yeah,
Beautiful place.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. Great food as well. But the second time I went, I did 30 days. Once again, no support afterwards. And I got to the airport when I was leaving after 30 days and jumped in a taxi and said, get me some crack cocaine.
You never told me that.
I know.
I know that you came home and used the day after.
Yeah, that's because I used the day before in Antigua. So before I even got on the plane, I'd used in Antigua.
How did you feel when you did that?
Oh, stupid. You just feel ridiculous.
Was it worth it when you did, was it a good hit?
No, because the guilt and shame came.
Yeah.
The guilt and shame.
Did you tell anybody else when you got back that that's what you'd done?
No, and I only told you yesterday.
I know.
Kept that one secret.
You did. I'm sure you got plenty more secrets as well. That
Not really, no.
I bet you do.
No. I think you know my life.
I could never relate to this intense desire and need and want to have drugs. I just could never relate to it. So I related to Paul, the Paul that wasn't the addict, as opposed to Paul that was the addict. So yeah, and that made me feel so sad, because I genuinely, I'm quite instinctive, and I'm quite psychic in a way, and I could see the real vulnerability that was Paul at his core, at his soul, and that part of Paul wasn't an addict, in my opinion.
Something happened when you were in Antigua. You met somebody. We won't reveal who he said he was, but tell us that story.
Oh my God! Yeah, this guy. He claimed. So I suppose this is a bit like going in rehab and saying, "Yeah, I met Elvis. Elvis was in rehab," but it's as ridiculous as that.
Right,
but
tell
he
us
claimed
the story. So he was one of the other patients in the...
He was one of the other patients, and I was in his group, and it was like, this guy's not telling the truth about something. And I said to him, it was just me and him round the smoking pit.
Describe him. What did he look like?
Oh, he was 6 foot, blonde hair, in his mid-60s, lots of scars on his knees.
Mm.
And I've been in a few group therapies with him in the rehab, and we was outside having a smoke, and just me and him there, and I said to him, you're hiding something, there's something you're not telling us. And he smiled at me and said, I'm a race car driver from the 70s, and I'm supposed to be dead. And it was like, no way.
What do you mean by that?
Well, he faked his own death.
Wow.
And he was a Formula One race car driver from the 70s, and I knew the name. And I looked at him, and he showed me his scars on his knees, because that's what happened in his crash, where he's supposed to have died in this car crash. And I met him, and I believe him.
Yeah, I mean, could it have just been a kind of an alcoholic guy who was deluded, who was...
It could very well be, yeah. But I believed him.
Yeah, I met him too.
Yeah.
I met him too, and I believe him
very
too.
Very believable.
Yeah.
But the story goes quite deep, but I'm not going to go into it.
In what sense?
Because I might get him in trouble.
I should investigate.
Yeah.
Further, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I might get in touch with him, see if he's still going.
Yeah. Well, we know where he lives, don't we?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, so Big Arm.
Mm-hmm.
You did quite a lot of fun promotions for that the 2 Big Arm singles that got released. One of them involved being on the Frank Sidebottom show with a special 70s iconic guest.
David Soul. I was on a TV show called the Frank Sidebottom Show, like you said, and the other guest was David Soul.
Wow. And
we played a cover version of a fall song, Hit the North. Was it Hit the North?
I don't know.
Can't remember, but David Soul was in my band for 3 minutes while we did this cover version.
Around 2 weeks later, he needed to come back for the Frank Sidebottom Show. And then, yeah, he was kind of straight in, again, unfazed. And then, did he know Frank from, I presume he did, do you know, I presume that he would have...
Yeah, I think he'd met him, yeah, for sure. But I don't think he knew that David Soul was going to be there as well.
A big hero of his, I think, by all accounts. Yeah. But yeah, he was, again, kind of unfazed, because it would have been the first time, well, one of the first times I imagine that he would have performed on his own, I presume, because he didn't have a band with him.
Yeah, you're right, actually, yeah. There was a different show he did on Channel M with the whole band. Yeah, you're right, he was just singing to a backing track, wasn't he?
Certainly Frank was bopping in the back. But yeah, he was kind of unfazed. And for a man that had played bass for so many years, to not have your bass with you, he was dancing. He was having a good old dance, from what I can remember. He was, again, having a laugh, got in, did his performance, did his interview, and off he popped. Then we followed him to go on a short film. Yeah, he was just, again, kind of unfazed. He just took everything in his stride. Went in, did his gangster bit, did his fake punch. I'd love to have seen how it looked in post. But yeah, he did his fake punch, and then again just kind of got his job done, and off he popped back to. He was, do you know what? I think he was heading straight back to France.
When we went to France, John took a load of Frank Sidebottom animated videos for the kids to watch. And when we got there was no telly or anything like that. So Paul was really into Frank Sidebottom, and so he just stayed up the whole night watching Frank Sidebottom animated videos the whole night. I remember that because the kids were like, "Ooh!" Yeah, I don't know if you remember that, but that was one thing that it was. He just loved it. He was chuckling away, watching Frank on doing his little. That was probably the Worldwide Shed show. That was what it was. So I just remember that Paul was there watching them like on a loop.
It's great as the credits are rolling, you can hear David Soul saying, "This is the most stupidest thing I've ever done." But it was great to meet David Soul.
Other weird celebrity encounters you had. Do you remember you met Petula Clark? We took the kids to Disneyland in Orlando, and Petula Clark happened to be singing there.
She was performing that night in Disneyland.
And then you met her afterwards.
Yeah, told her I was a fan.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, we should collaborate. Can you imagine you and Petula Clark? That would have been cool.
That would have been good, yeah, we met Petula.
Which other celebrities have you met that have kind of had an impact on you? You must have rubbed shoulders with a lot of people.
Oh, I've met a lot of celebrities, but the only one I was really starstruck with was Bowie. Yeah. It was like I couldn't even speak to him. Yeah. I just stared at him. Yeah. Thinking, God, that's David Bowie stood next to me. Yeah. Proper starstruck.
Yeah. Did you have any did you meet anybody else that you did actually manage to speak to?
Not really. I was pretty shy.
Yeah.
Didn't want to mind the people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've met a lot of celebrities over the years.
Didn't you kiss Lisa Stansfield on a tour bus once?
No, that was the girl out of Delight.
Oh,
Lady
okay,
Miss Keir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the Lisa Stansfield story?
Oh, she was at the same party in Brazil. We went to Prince's party.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Did you meet Prince?
No, we got told as we was walking in, don't look at Prince, don't talk to Prince, don't approach Prince. Oh. If he gets on the dance floor, move away from Prince. Oh. So we got our instructions.
From who?
From his security. So we all walked in and went, "There's Prince! There's fucking Prince over there!" Yo, Prince!
What did he do?
He just sat there. He just sat there. You can't tell a load of Manx not to do that. He's obviously going to do it.
Yeah, with knobs on.
Mm-hmm.
I was live on air and I was presenting a 3-hour radio show. And I thought and I never ever, on all the radio shows ever, look at the news. I never do it because you prep your show and you know what you're going to talk about. But because this was a 3-hour show, I just thought I'll just have a quick. I was going on the news to find something I wanted to talk about, and I went on the news and it came up, Paul Ryder is dead. And honestly, I was in such shock. I was just in utter shock, and I was live on air. I cancelled some links and just made the show run for a little while. And then I spoke to my producer and said, I'm in shock because my friend Paul Ryder has passed away. I've just seen it and I'm live on air. I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said, well, how do you feel? Do you feel okay to announce it if he's your friend? I feel emotional now. Oh, I feel emotional. And he said, if he's your friend and you loved him, announce it on air. So I did. And I said, I'm going to let you know that a dear friend of mine I've just found out has passed away. It's Paul Ryder, and from the Happy Mondays, and I'm really in shock. So, and I said what a beautiful man he was and what a lovely friend. and I played one of the songs, yeah. And then I went into the second studio and I recorded a few links, and then I left and I couldn't stay on air. And honestly, really emotional. I can remember it as if it was yesterday.
Coming up on the next episode.
You got to slowly come off whatever your drug of choice is. You know, I was known as a dustbin because I'd take anything and large amounts of it. So I was detoxing off all kinds of different things that had taken over the years.
Mortified, not so much about Paul. Mortified, the boys. That was it. Oh, we were heartbroken. How could you do that? Take Sonny and Chico away from us. And the day you moved to LA was the day Shaun came to live round here.
So we flew to Denver, we arrived, checked in the hotel, and you went to do your DJ set in Denver. And then at about 2 o'clock in the morning, I heard this kerfuffle outside the room and struggling to open the door, and you literally fell into the hotel room, absolutely drunk as a skunk.
While Angela and Paul were there, yeah, he were great. And then as soon as Angela and Paul left, they were like, can we have a drink? No. Eh? Like, why are you turned into a massive arsehole?
Wow, I just couldn't even speak to him. It was like, I just couldn't get any words out. It was like George Harrison. I'm sat next to George Harrison, who's feeding me egg and salmon sandwiches.
We're playing out with a song Paul and Pete Smith did with Rowetta around the time of the 24-Hour Party People film. You'll probably recognise some parts from it. Listen very carefully. It's called Party People. Please join our Patrons Club by going to patreon.com/the Paul Ryder Tapes and check out our shop by going to the website www.paulryder.tv, which also has links to the socials. Come and join in the conversation. We will be back same time, same place next week. And if you can't wait and you want to listen to the next episode right now in podcast form, just head over to any podcast platform and you can hear the next episode right now. Thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate you. Please continue to spread the word about this project. Thank you to the guests, and big thanks, as always, goes to the star of the show, the one and the only, the late, great Paul Anthony Ryder.
Party people, party sounds. Everybody's gotta get up to get down. Party people, party town. Everybody's gotta get up to get down. Glistening Productions.
Can I put it in?
No.
That would be really funny.